And the war, of course, is also taking its toll on American service members, as Richard has been reporting. Watch.
In all honesty, when it started up, it felt like it wasn't ever going to stop.
For me and for my country, it was worth it. The sacrifice of the soldiers was worth it, and what we came to right now at the end, their sacrifice was worth it.
Two men who started together with the beginning of the war and are leaving together, as Richard Engel has been reporting. Wes Moore now joins us, a former White House fellow and retired captain in the U.S. Army. He served in Afghanistan with the 82nd Airborne and is also the author of a stunning book, The Other Wes Moore, One Name, Two Fates. It's very good to see you. Thanks so much for joining us today. I wanted to talk to you about Iraq in the context of your combat experience in Afghanistan, because we see this withdrawal and, of course, the withdrawal that is anticipated in July of 2011, although what we're hearing from General Petraeus and from Secretary Gates is condition-based. And if we're not ready to withdraw at that point, they'll have to take a different tack.
Yeah, and I think, you know, in light of the horrific attacks, what we saw in Iraq today, and you know, the terrible tragedy of it, and it's obviously disappointing to see, you know, what exactly happened when 6 months ago, where we had very peaceful and participatory elections in Iraq. The fact that we still, to this point, do not have a sustainable power-sharing agreement amongst all the different parties in Iraq, you know, obviously it's disappointing, disheartening. But at the same time, I think it's also important to remember where we were in Iraq and where we are now in Iraq. You know, Iraq is on the cusp of some pretty remarkable breakthroughs. When not only do we have the military transition and the security transition as the military goes from Operation Iraqi Freedom to now Operation New Dawn, we also have Iraq with the first chance to have a government that actually protects minority rights, and Iraq with the first chance in not just 7 years, but really in a generation, to have a sustainable economic environment for its people. So you know, it's important that we keep all of this in context as we're thinking about the transitions that Iraq now is going through.
And in that context, you were one of those who testified at John Kerry's hearings, and you said in that hearing that unlike Iraq, Afghanistan is a very rural fight and cannot be fought out of Kandahar or Kabul. In Iraq, the saying was, as goes Baghdad, so goes the rest of the country. This is not the case in Afghanistan, and in many ways it's the antithesis of the truth. And from your experience, when we see the failure to have a strong central government in Afghanistan, and Hamid Karzai's decision announced today to kick out American-based security firms that are providing so much security for NATO and for the U.S. forces there, the challenge in Afghanistan is very daunting.
The challenge in Afghanistan is very daunting, and in many ways it also comes back to what's taking place in Iraq. You know, and I say this statement with all humility, because I don't work inside of the in the inner sanctum of the Pentagon, but I know that the footprint that we still currently have in Iraq, even after September 1st, 50,000 troops is still quite a significant footprint. It's 5 to 6 brigades, and so I think as we're thinking forward and looking forward to the fight that we have coming up in Afghanistan and the fight that General Petraeus has to lead, you know, 1 or 2 or 3 brigades that are taking on these advisory roles in Iraq, I know can make a big difference in the type of operations that we have coming up in Afghanistan, as we could look more towards not just holding, but then building out the specific Afghan forces as well.
Let me also tap into your experience in terms of the crisis in urban education in our country, because I stayed up last night very late reading The Other Wes Moore, and I was blown away by this book. I should have read it before now, but knowing that you were coming on today. One Name, Two Fates. You were going to become a Rhodes Scholar, and as you left, you read about your being awarded the Rhodes, and another man with your name in Baltimore, and you had deep roots there as well in Maryland from your family, was arrested for murder, for murdering a police officer. And you reached out to him when you came back, and you started writing letters. What did you learn, is there a way to capsulize what you learned from the other side of the experience? As you write, his experience could have been yours, yours could have been his.
I think one thing that I learned, you know, well, first is just the importance of education, as we're having all these debates now about where we are as a country in terms of our educational standing. You cannot overstate the importance of making sure that we have quality and universal education for all people. In addition to that, it's the importance of expectations. It's the importance of making sure that the expectations that we're setting for all of our children are high, because generally the expectations that we place on young people are the expectations they'll have for themselves, and those expectations will help deliver and help to deliver them on the destinies that we're hoping that they will eventually achieve.
Now, as you make that point, there's a new study today which shows that graduation rates, high school graduation rates for black males are devastatingly low. We talk about the rate in New York City is 25%, Detroit 27%, Baltimore City 35%. What can we do to change that?
Well, I think there are a lot of structural issues that have to be addressed, both in terms of the infrastructural building and the funding of educational cycles. But in addition to that, I think we need to take a really hard look as to how we address education in this country, both in terms of the length of school year, the amount of hours inside of the school. Because as we're now going into this, not just a national economy, but a globalized economy, we need to make sure that we're preparing people to compete for the new type of jobs that the 21st century is going to bring in. And I think one thing that we also see, particularly with this report, where you see these daunting numbers, particularly amongst African American boys, is as we're not just thinking about just the cost of what happens if we don't do anything, but the larger opportunity cost for inaction, the larger opportunity cost about not being able to help these young people realize the things that they can realize that would eventually not just help out them and their families, but our nation as a whole.
And since the book came out and has been so widely read, what about the other Wes Moore and his response to it as he serves his life sentence in prison at Jessup?
Well, I think he's really had two main reactions to it. One, as he got a chance to read the book, it amazed him how much research went into it to get the story done. But in addition to that, after reading about his life in a book like that, he told me that it amazed him how little that he's done with his life. So I think this has been a real eye-opening realization for both of us as we've gone through this process about decisions taken and roads deferred. Wes Moore,
author of The Other Wes Moore. Thank you so much. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you, Andrew.